All right. Well, let's get started. Thank you all for being here. My name is Spencer. I'm one of the founders of Daily AI. We have a couple different products in the mortgage space, from CRM, sales acceleration, recruiting, to a new AI powered platform that we're working on. Really excited to have you here. For those of you who've been kind of following this series, as we're talking to different thought leaders in the industry, it's just been a lot of fun. And very excited to be joined with Dan Brown here from Spire Financial. Spire Financial last year did 1.2 billion in volume. Dan built that from scratch, and we're certainly gonna dive into how he was able to do that. And I think Dan has some really unique takes on leadership and how he's been able to grow his team. And so, very excited to pick his brain on how he's been able to be so successful. And just in general, we're going to have a little bit of a different format today. So, we're going to have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So, we're going to chat for maybe a half hour or so, and then we want to have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So, you can save your questions for the end. That's fine, and we can take a look at them. Or I would say, as questions come up, feel free to just drop them in the chat. We're going to probably wait till the end to address them, but we're going to start to compile a list of those questions. And candidly, that's just where Dan is most passionate about, is making sure that, those of you who took the time to be here today, your questions are answered. He wants to be able to speak directly to you. So anyway, with that being said.
Hi, Spencer. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Hi, guys. I'm Dan Brown. I'm I guess I'm the founder of Spire Financial. I now carry a regional manager title, but really excited to be here and share some thoughts. Hopefully you find them useful and helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe a great place to start is, maybe just a quick background on, when you started in the industry, what your progressions look like. I think one of the things that I'm really excited to dive into with you is, you were an originator, you were a top originator, and now you're, regional manager. So I think you can speak to a number of different personas who might have tuned in today, whether it's a new originator, growing their team, or someone looking to do and create what you've done at Spire. So maybe take us back to the beginning. When did you get into the industry?
Yeah, the beginning sucked. Turns out 2001 terrorists fly planes into our building and the economy collapsed. And and I was actually living out in LA at the time, and had a really cool job, but because of that, lost that job, and honestly tried to stick it out there and find a job out there. I thought I liked it at the time, realized I didn't, and moved back into my parents' basement at the age of 27 years old. It was pretty tough. And because the job market was so dead, I had been in sales previously, and I knew that I wanted to be in sales because sales was the one thing that I knew that I could do to control my income. The jobs that just happened to be hiring at the time was a buddy of mine a couple of years prior to open up a mortgage broker shop right there in downtown Denver. Showed up on his doorstep. I said, Brent, I need a job. And he goes, all right, let's go. And basically had no idea what I was doing, got no training, but we had fun for the first about year. And luckily the timing was right. It was the first refi boom that it ever kind of really happened in America. We started going to the DU underwrites, and it was a good time to get in with rates dropping from 9 and 8 down into the 6s. We think that that's hot. Well, I guess that's where we're at today. But, it was a great time to be able to learn on my feet, because there was ample opportunity, much like there's been the last 3 years here, to really try to hone the craft as quickly as I could, so that I could get on the path to where I wanted to be.
Awesome. Yeah. And so, so then you kind of had 2008 happen. How did that impact you? Or,
horrible.
Yeah.
I should have declared bankruptcy. It was a really, really tough time. I started Spire Financial in 2004 at a dining room table about that size. And, it's so funny because ever since I got into mortgages, I was looking to get out. I don't know why that, I think I do know why that was. That was because, back in that time, Colorado was the second to last state. It was Colorado and Nebraska that didn't require any type of licensing to be a mortgage broker or mortgage professional. And so, when I got into it, everybody got into it. And it just felt like mortgage people then were viewed kind of as the used car salesman of the financial world. And I didn't like that. I had enough pride about me that I just felt dirty telling people what I did. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but the industry really had, a bad, tag around it. And this was back when people were charging 5 to 7 points for mortgages. And I mean, again, you can imagine with no licensing, much less registration, all you got to do is put your hand up, and that's probably not a great thing for the industry. But one of the positives that came out of the 2008 situation was the fact that we decided as an industry to get a little bit better. And, they changed LO comp. They forced licensing, which was great. I mean, whereas before there were no barriers to entry, and you can probably imagine the types of people that would put their hand up and do that. I mean, they were selling cell phones one week at a mall kiosk, and the next week they're a mortgage professional.
Sure.
And so, the good thing that happened coming out of 8, 9, 10, 11, which were tough years, was it washed out all the people that shouldn't have been there. And so, while those were certainly tough times, just by staying in it, we were able to then, go into this tremendous growth phase and kind of do what we've done, get on our way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, maybe kind of walk me through that. I know you stopped originating, I think you said it was 2019, 2018, 2020. Okay. But leading up to that, so let's take, those tough years, 2011, between 2011, 2020, what did your day-to-day look like? What were the things you were focused on, and kind of maybe walk me through the story as, Spire started to really grow and take shape.
Yeah. So, looking back on it, I don't know why anybody would have come to work for us, but they did. I think about, again, the barriers to entry just being so low. It was probably a little bit easier back then. But I was truly focused on originating because, I mean, I was really the guy that was doing it. And, I had to also train people that were doing it at the same time. And there's nothing like learning on the job. But basically, the company really existed for the first several years around my origination. And so, as an originator, the one thing that I thought about in terms of really hating the perception of the industry was I decided right then and there in like 2004, 2005, I said, you know what, this is ridiculous. I am going to look the part. I'm going to act the part. I'm going to let people know that I'm serious about myself and I'm serious about helping them. Yep. Because there were too many people doing mortgages and t-shirts and flip-flops. And somehow that was acceptable, but I didn't like it. I felt that that was a negative reflection on me. And so to change that reflection and that perception, I decided to do something about it. And it seems so simple, but I put on a suit, tie, and pocket square every day for 15 years. And, along with that, I decided that I was really going to equip myself in not just being an expert in mortgages, but in how the world works and the world economy and the U.S. economy. And, luckily I was kind of already into that. But honestly, like I was doing the advising part before anybody told me to be an advisor. Right. That was just my nature. I didn't want to be a salesy person, right? That's not me. But yet my job is to sell. So I was truly trying to have advisement moments with clients around what their goals were and how the economy worked and where rates were going and what the real estate market's doing, and really dig in and ask them about what their goals were. And, it sounds so simple now, but there were so many people that weren't doing that back in the day. They were order takers, they really weren't diving in and helping folks. And I think that that's what allowed me to just be a little bit better than them, to do as well as I did that early.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I want to keep going with sort of the timeline and your story, but I do want to kind of call that out because I think that's an interesting distinction you're seeing in the industry today, where you have, the Rocket mortgage and, Better and things like that, which are, maybe promoting and spending hundreds of millions, billions of dollars on loan programs that maybe are not, as beneficial to their customers or rarely are, and you kind of have a different subset of the industry, which is really trying to take on more of that mortgage advisor type of persona. And so it's fascinating started doing that way before maybe mortgage professionals were sort of forced to, as they are now.
Correct.
And I'm curious, I know that's a big part of Spire. I mean, how have you been able to kind of keep that intact as you've grown, right? Because I mean, you had a business around you. Obviously, you're able to control the way that you do business. But now you've got, like around what, 60, 80, 100 LOs here. I mean,
I think we've got about 60, yeah.
yeah,
So,
60 LOs. How have you been able to kind of keep that that mindset?
well, I mean, it's just quite frankly being really honest with people up front. I've definitely got a lot better at it over the years. But I mean, and certainly it was a lot harder back in the beginning because the unique selling proposition wasn't the same as what it is now. We've got some economies of scale to be able to do some really cool things for our folks, which is great. But it was just a genuine belief that I could help them. Like I truly believed that if they would listen to me and allow me to help, they can do whatever they want to do in this industry. And I really believed that. And I think that was how simplistic the message was, back in the day. And if they saw me and how serious I was about it and how serious I carried myself and what I did think about the industry, that was something that they would want to emulate. And so a lot of it was like, I think some laws of attraction.
Yeah.
A lot of it was networking. But we reached a critical mass really in about 2016, 2017. So it's not been very long. And all of a sudden, we had a reputation and I believe it was a good one. And, we went through a recruiting boom. And, I didn't make as many good choices. We didn't make as many good choices in hindsight as I would have liked. And so, it's one thing to want to grow. Like that's great. But it's another thing to bring the right people with you and not allow the wrong people in. And sometimes it's a bad fit. And that's the honest part of the conversation that we've got to now is, we only want the type of people that are going to be with us and be really, really happy here and in a place where they can add to the culture here as well. And, again, we've kind of gotten lucky, I feel, before we really defined that over the last several years. But I say all the time, hey, listen, we don't hire for aptitude. We hire for attitude. I can teach you how to do a mortgage. Well, you don't want to learn from me anymore. Somebody else here can teach you how to do a mortgage, right? But your attitude is going to determine how far you're going to go with this. And your attitude determines a lot of things, because if you got a bad attitude in here, maybe you're a cancer on that guy and maybe that gal. And then pretty soon we got a problem. And when you put culture at the front of truly what you're doing, it means that you got to make a deal with yourself. And that is, pardon my French, don't hire an asshole. We just try not to hire bad people. We try to really be open source in what we're looking for. So when we're sitting there at an interview at this table, I flat out tell people, in 6 months from now, if it doesn't work out, I can promise you, you will not be able to call me a liar. You won't be able to. If one of us lied, it won't be me. That's not why it's not going to work. So it's just that upfront, honest, transparent, like you got to know who you're getting married to. And that's kind of the crazy thing about recruiting, right? I mean, it's such historically, I've hated it. And I'm like, well, why do you hate it? That's your job. Your job is to make the people around you better by growing the team. I'm like, yeah, but I don't like it. And I think the reason why I didn't like it, because at some level it's self-serving.
Sure.
And that's something that you got to really get to the bottom of. And, I think I didn't like the fact that it was potentially self-serving, and it was very hard to convince somebody to come work for me, knowing full well that I'm hopefully going to get something for it. And so, I was just not very good with it. And I was still doing it, but not to kind of the level that we are now. But the way that I had an aha moment was I truly told myself, I'm like, do you think that this is a special group of people here already? Yeah, I do. I think it's the best. I honestly do. Culturally, it's absolutely amazing. Ops-wise, amazing. We have awesome loan officers. They're just good people. I mean, good people who want to be around one another and are doing great things. And then I'm like, okay, well, do you really believe that? And I was like, I do believe that. And do you believe that you have tools, products, mentorship, the things that other LOs who aren't currently your company would need. Yes, I really do believe that. Well, then don't make it about you, dude. It's about what you can do for those guys. And somehow I went back to what I did in the beginning. And that is, it's about me helping. It's about we helping. It's about really being aligned with that person who can listen to the messages that we put out, who can become ingrained and can be a part of our community.
Yeah. No, and sort of providing value, is something that's sticking out to me, both when, you've always been, seems like, focused most on providing value to the people you serve, whether it was clients as a mortgage professional or now, your team as a regional manager. I think that's a really unique way to look at the world, and it can be challenging too, for sure. Lots of ups and downs, but obviously if you're able to provide that value, I mean, people are attracted to what you're doing.
And that's kind of the thing, right? Like recruiting typically happens, over a usually short amount of time.
Yeah.
And the reason why that happens over a short amount of time is because somebody is in pain somewhere else. So, when I think about it like that, I'm like, well, like I don't want somebody coming over here only because they're in pain. Like if I had my way, I would be like, I'm the prettiest girl at the ball. Come work over here. Like that's just what we think. We want people to recognize that. We want them to be as bought in and excited about being here as we are excited to have them. And so, when it has to happen quickly, you better get down to brass tacks because you don't know who else they're talking to. They're probably wanting to make a decision fairly quickly, if not imminently, because they're checked out of wherever they're at. And because of that, it's important that, you don't oversell, but you got to tell them what you do. You got to tell them what's special about you. You got to understand what your unique selling proposition is and how that benefits them, not you. And so I really just took the onus off of me and put it on helping them because I know what we do here every day. I know how we serve one another here every day. And I tell these guys, a couple years ago when I quit originating, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So great timing, because just from a personal, from a personal standpoint, I had to determine what the next day looked like. I'm like, what do I do now? Really, I had to decide, like, okay, if you're really going to be a leader, then that's your only job. Like, you better figure that, like, and luckily, because we couldn't come to the office, and I did know what to do with my hands, I was go to the golf course every day, hang out with buddies, and really think about, like, just kind of like decompress out of where I'd been after 19 years originating, and then like really like think about, okay, what if you're going to curate this thing and take it to the next level, what does that look like? And what are you excited about? And what I got really, really excited about was how I look at the people who work here. Because they're already such a great group of humans. And I'm like, all right, like, what are you going to do for them that adds tremendous value because you care about them? See, like, honestly, there's people that just care if people come and go for the money.
Yeah.
But like, I honestly don't. And that is not a lie. I just really don't. I've told people 1,000 times, you can't come in here and be a jerk. Like, I just don't need your 5 million a month volume for that. It's not worth it to me. Money's important, but it's not that important. It's not that important. And so, I just really decided, look, like, what you're going to curate needs to be understanding that your employees aren't your employees. They're your clients. And I've got to serve them, and I've got to take care of them. And I've got to be able to not only empathize with what they're going through in whatever market that we're in, but I've also got to give them tools, training, mentorship, techniques, stories, whatever it is, that enriches their experience here. And the good news about laying it all out on the table like that is if they don't like it, leave, and I don't care. Like, I don't say that to be a non-caring person. It's just that's where the fit comes in.
Right.
And when you really start to understand who you are, you can develop that unique selling proposition. And then it's authentic.
Right.
Then you don't worry about like having to be salesy or selling someone. And so, to me, it doesn't matter how slow or quick it goes anymore, or how they got in front of me. What matters is that I can be here to serve them, if they're the type of person that's going to be able to fit here. And if we both chose wisely, they're going to grow.
Yep. And that's one of the things that we've noticed because we work with you through Recruitable, kind of on the recruiting side. A lot of the clients we work with are really only interested in bringing in maybe a producer that's doing, 8 figures, and it was pretty much all purchase, of course, past 18 months. And one of the things that, we noticed right off the bat when working with you all is that, hey, someone's new to the industry, right? They just got licensed, you feel like, attitudinally, they're maybe in a good spot. Like, I want to talk to them, right? And, maybe just talk to me a little bit about that, or maybe just share briefly, because I think you all have some really amazing, innovative programs for people that are newer to the industry that are learning, and so, maybe talk a little bit about that, but also, maybe to somebody that's listening today who is new to the industry themselves, like what types of things should they be thinking about, should be learning, should be, should they understand to succeed, right? Because you've seen so many people walk through your doors who are really green, and then, a year later they're, producing, millions and millions of dollars of volume, so I'd love to dive in there.
Yeah, get them young, treat them rough. I tell these guys all the time, because we're really hiring for attitude. Somebody comes in here and, blows my hair back, and they're just out of college, or I don't care. Like, we've got some really young kiddos running around here, and they're great. They're awesome. I mean, they've completely superseded the growth levels that I would have thought they could have done. And that's just an awesome testament to the thing that we do here. It really has very little to do with me. But I will tell you, when those young folks come in, it's very important. And whether you're young or old, like, there's two parts of this job. See, there's some people that have an extreme talent at being able to sell. And so they're good at getting the loans. You know what? Sometimes with that extreme talent comes a little bit of laziness on really understanding how to be a mortgage professional. Like, somebody's paying you money. You should know how to do your job, right? And so, there's two sides of the coin. There's the sales side, and there's being a professional. And we have to constantly and continually train and retrain on that, right? Because new things happen every day, or new markets. I mean, the message that we had last year at this time was much different than the message that we've got right now, and rightfully so. So stressing that education is super important, but we all know that. Telling somebody that they got to be a good salesperson, well, we all know that too. What are you saying? Well, here's what makes it special here. I don't run this in a vacuum. We have a consortium of leaders, and we're very transparent with all of our people. And the reason why we're transparent is because we don't have anything to hide. If things are going well, they're going well. If things are going poorly, they're going poorly. That's how it's going to go. And we've really tried to mentor, some folks have been here longer than others. And by creating that community and that collaboration that we've already got, it's easy for the right attitude to align to that, because it's not all on me. The peer management in this company is, I didn't even know what that was until I saw it here. And I don't know exactly when it started, but the amount of help and care that you get from folks here is truly just remarkable. Like, and again, I don't know, I don't think I did anything to make that happen, but that just speaks to the quality and the character of the original decisions of getting the right people. Because if they're the right people, they are going to help and manage. They can't help but want to help one another. They can't help but want to be around one another. Sometimes they need gentle reminders of that, but by and large, it's a lot more important for a new young LO to come and hear from somebody that's just a few rungs up the ladder than it is Dan Brown. I mean, I'm a dinosaur compared to some of these guys, and I don't know how to turn on a computer, so they can't be asking me like certain things. Like, that's just not going to work. And besides, they might be intimidated anyway because I'm me. And if you get that layer of peer management where somebody is more approachable and you can ask that stupid question and that it's going to get answered right away, and there's a whole group of people that are in real time, like helping each other out on apps or on email or on whatever, it really is an unbelievable thing, and a great way to microwave people's careers and grow them quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that I'm really getting from this is, this idea of being authentic and true to yourself, right? What motivates you? and building a culture around that and being honest, right? And I think you've been in the industry for a long time. You weren't able to build this overnight, right? It's not, and you're not looking to go from 60 LOs to 200 LOs next year, right? It's understanding that the culture is the most important thing, and perhaps that's why you have 60 LOs. You did 1.2 billion in volume. I mean, that's a lot of volume per LO,
volume per LO.
right?
And again, a lot of kiddos that helped along the way with that number that, again, I'm truly proud of. But we get those good attitudes. People with a really good attitude are going to be much more receptive to having a quick aptitude. And so that's why the attitude piece is so incredibly important. But in terms of like being authentic and true to yourself, we talk about that a lot in our regional meetings, and it's the most important thing to me because when there's an incongruence in us, something's wrong, we know it. Got to get down to the bottom of what that is, and a lot of times when you can truly define in an authentic way how you feel about something, including yourself, then you don't have to feel salesy.
Yeah.
And I try to get each and every one of these folks to really understand, like, my way is not going to be your way, and that's okay because it has to feel authentic to you. Like, you've got to be able to sit in front of somebody and they got to be able to feel that authenticity. And you don't have to try to be the smartest. Don't try to say things that you don't know. Just don't, right? Tell them, I don't know. I'm going to go ask somebody that knows. I'll find out and call you back. But find where you feel authentic and truly good about what you do. Because if you don't feel good about what you do, you're double-minded and you're actually cutting off your nose to spite your face. You don't know what you could do if you would just get switched on and aligned with yourself and be the person that you really thought that you were going to be in this career. See, every single one of the people that work here wanted to come work here for whatever reason. When they said, I want to be a loan officer, well, you told me you wanted to be a loan officer. I didn't come find you and pick you out of King Soopers and say, you want to be a loan officer? So you wanted to be here. And in the very beginning of you deciding that you wanted to be here, and by here, I mean the industry, you had a dream somewhere. I don't think that dream was to be poor. I don't think that dream was to be marginal. I don't think that the dream was to be really bad and unprofessional at your job, right? So you have to find your unique selling proposition inside of the programs and skill sets that we give you here, because it has to feel authentic. And the more authentic you are, the easier it's going to be to attract your 15% of people that really need to be around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just, before we get to question and answers, because I know we want to spend a good portion of time there. The last question I have for you is, you mentioned you have this sort of leadership consortium, right? And I know you call it kind of the captains, and I don't know the exact number, whether it's 6 or 7 or however many captains there are, where you all sit together and make those types of decisions. How are you able to so let's take somebody who's a team leader here. Maybe they have a production partner or two, but they're looking to really kind of grow to the next level. How have you been able to find those people, attract those people, and work with them, and kind of create that leadership team, if you will?
This is, anytime you're running a sales organization, it's like, okay, well, you're the best, therefore you're the team captain. Usually, there's got to be a personality fit. They got to want it. Some people don't want to be in that position. God love them. They want to grow a big team. And they want to do their thing, but there really has to be true alignment on everything that we've talked about and a whole lot more. But it typically comes from somebody who has realized, because they went back to the dream, that they're like, I really do want to do that. And I think I'm here and I think I can help. I think I provide something that you don't. And that's the one thing that I don't remember which one of the guys said it, but he said, listen, we're talking to a recruit, and he said, none of us by ourselves is the greatest leader in the world. But man, the 4 or 5 of us together, pretty incredible. You'll have a really good, complete leader in that. And we're all here for you. And so the peer management works both ways. Our captains are branch managers, and we have 6 branches right now. And so, we have to help one another, and we have to help one another's people too. And I think that, again, that's what's so unique about being here is, if our Cherry Creek branch or Westminster branch or Scottsdale branch, LOs have questions there, their processors have questions, whoever it is, like, everybody is helping one another within the company, because the branch might be a branch code, but like we're Spire Financial.
Yep.
We are all one. Where your feet sit Monday through Friday or whenever you're there doesn't mean that you're not a part of the bigger thing.
Yep.
And so that's how we run it. That's how we operate it.
Awesome. Love it. Well, let's get to some question answers, the fun stuff. So I'm going to grab my phone here and see where we're going to go ahead and get started. Awesome. Let's see. So this is a great question. Question from Tom. It says, what questions do you ask in the interview process to identify good/bad culture fit? And basically, how do you weed out the assholes?
That's a great question, Tom. And again, because when we went through that kind of first boom in 16, 17, there's I don't know what proportion of those people in that time hired. A high portion of them aren't here anymore. So, coming out of that, I think I was really snake bit, and we needed to refine that. And so basically, if I were to just be completely honest with you, I just downright threaten them for the first half an hour of the interview of like, don't come here. If you can't act like this, don't come here. Like, you can feel it. It's special here. And if you're not going to be a part of making that special, you're not going to like it. And then we're not going to like you. And I'm going to ask you to leave. So let's not waste our time. Let's not waste our time. And, the way that the conversation typically goes is you don't have to be like, are you a good cultural fit? Well, no, nobody's going to ask. And everybody, by the way, thinks that they've got great culture. Have you ever met a CEO of a company that's like, oh, our culture's great, and their culture sucks?
Yeah.
It's dog meat.
Yeah.
Because they really aren't thinking about it. They really aren't thinking about it. But it's super important to walk through the methodology of where those people have been, what they liked about it. Typically, you're going to figure out pretty quickly if it's a person that's like, hey, man, I really love the people that I work with here. It's like a family. I mean, it's just been, we don't have the products. I don't have the solutions. And I hate leaving those guys, but man, I need to pay the bills. That's probably going to be a good cultural fit, right? Because they've talked about how they love where they currently are and they love the people. And that's a good tell without having to ask them directly. But I mean, I can't let it be unsaid enough. Like, I literally, not in a mean way, but I just tell them what's up, like from the very get. And you can tell based on their body language and their reaction, like, whoa, because most people, when they're coming from pain, there is a cultural pain. Yeah. And so they're nodding their head. When I'm threatening them, they're nodding their head. They're like, awesome, awesome, because they know they inherently understand that's the level that everybody else is held to here, and they want to be like that.
Yeah.
I hope that answers.
No, it definitely does. And I think before we get to the next question, you've mentioned this to me before, but I think it's a great time for you to share a little bit about kind of like the highest and best philosophy you have, because I know that dovetails really well into what we're talking about in terms of building a culture and empowering people.
Yeah. So, coming out of LA, the one good thing that I was able to do, because I had abundance of time on my hands, I really needed to determine like who I was. What's my worldview? I don't feel very special right now because I've been unemployed for 9 months. So I've got to like rebuild this dude, and I got to get this stuff figured out. And I did a lot of reading and a lot of meditating. And I basically, there's different definitions of a worldview, but I've come up with my 4. Who am I? Where did I come from? How did I get here? And where am I going? And it was really important for me to self-actualize and understand each point of those 4 points so that I really understood, well, here's where I'm at. I'm here now because of this. And I realized that, through really understanding that, I wanted to do something that was going to be at my absolute highest and best, that gave me a purpose to be passionate about. Like, everybody's like, find your passion, you'll never work another. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. I mean, for the people that are so lucky, like a professional athlete, great, good on you. Or maybe some people know and they're just passionate about it and they're high achievers but listen, I think it's more important to be purposeful. Because if you really are purposeful, you're not going to help but put passion into it. And that purpose is super, super important. And that's why, like, here we want everybody to be right sized. We want them to do what they want to do here. And we want to let them explore their own space of who they are, how they want to grow. We don't have necessarily a cookie cutter blueprint over it, because I want to give them the best to be right sized in their highest and best. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, I think that's a great. No, I think that's perfect. Well, let's get to our next question. And yeah, and if you have any questions for Dan about growing a team or his journey, please drop them in the chat as well. We're going to hang out here for a little bit, so I'm hoping we can get to everyone's questions. This is from Jewel Marsh. So, do you find it difficult to duplicate yourself in new LOs as you built up Spire, or was there another focus for how you trained and hired individuals? So basically, creating, I'd say, like, what I'm gathering from this is kind of creating an army of people that, you're kind of multiplying yourself and your efforts. Were you looking to do that and kind of put people in a certain, maybe on a certain path that you knew would be successful, or maybe more from like an individual, standpoint, empowering everybody maybe differently, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got a different why for why they're here. And it's important to understand that up front. So when we were just getting going, you could lack resources because nobody had them in our industry, right? I mean, automation was just barely coming. And so, the pitch back then was, look, whether they were brand new to the industry, they were probably my friends or somebody that knew about me. Right. Or they worked for somewhere else and they were my friends. They're like, yeah, let's do this together. And we just kind of cobbled it together slowly but surely, until we finally kind of hit that critical mass. And in seeing some LOs fail, obviously over the last 20 years, and seeing some go on to super achieve, it's so funny because I can't be the one to discriminate against anyone based on what I think I have my first or second or third judgment of them, because I've been proved, if I did that, I'd prove myself wrong every single time. I mean, there's people that, would wow us as salespeople, but you know what? Turns out they're dirtbags, right? They just didn't want to really do what we think you should do in terms of the code of ethics that we operate with around here. Then there are some people who are like, man, are you sure you want to get into sales? Like, I don't think you're the right person for this. And sure enough, I mean, they're just rock stars. They're absolutely unbelievable. So I think, each of those experiences has truly helped us to understand, like, the journey is going to be unique. I mean, obviously we all have, I mean, it's going to be basically the same story, but it's your story. It's your story. And, it's super important that people understand, okay, here are the bumpers in the bowling lane so you don't go into the gutter, and we expect you to do this. But really the part of your journey to really get to be where you want to go is something that you've got to kind of define for yourself as you go.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. This is a great question from Eric here. It'd be, how are changing market conditions affecting your recruiting process? And I think maybe I'll even add to that a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously these past 2 years, there's just funny money for LOs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious kind of whether that presented opportunities or challenges, and now that maybe the market's getting more difficult, is that impacting things positively, negatively for you? I think that's a great question.
That's a great question. And, I'm so happy because about a year ago, I really knew that we had to get out in front of this thing that was coming. I mean, that train coming down the track was the sound of inevitability. And my gals probably got sick of hearing me saying, I'm like, guys, winter's coming. Winter is coming.
Yep.
Okay. I just promise you, what you're bitching about today is much better than what you're going to be bitching about tomorrow.
Yep.
But I took that to heart too. And so we really started to prepare ourselves in terms of the way that I looked at customer procurement and trying some new things, new marketing, just new stuff to really, like, yeah, maybe I didn't need to invest it at the time because loans were falling out of the sky. But man, I'm glad I did, because, because of that investment, when we could make it, we've now buffered ourselves to have some really special things to be able to navigate really difficult markets like this. And I don't know whose company's doing this, but in April of last year, rates were 3. April of this year, rates are 5. We did more business in this April than we did last April.
Wow.
With roughly the same LO count.
Why is that?
Well, that speaks to the fact that, first off, they come in and they do it our way. We've found our right people, right? But secondly, with the training, the tools, and quite frankly, the programs that we have that are fairly unique to what we do, especially our Spire Key Approval and Cash Buyer program right now, it's had a lot of LOs actually calling us because they're like, hey, we heard about this from my realtor, and tell me about it, because I'm a little scared here. And, they should be. You got to have a tool out there to compete against the Homewords, the Accepts, and some rich guy. Yeah. So, getting out in front of those things and thinking on a bigger level of like, how do we buffer ourselves, win winners here? I think that we started that process about a year and a half ago, and we've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. A great follow-up to that is, this is a great question from Tom. What does a successful hire look like for you? Let's say, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, in those time frames. And then also, I think a great question is, let's say someone is becoming that leader of the pack. There's somebody that could get to the point where they're doing 100 mil or something crazy. What do you do to keep those people around? Because I know it's really hard to keep those top producers. It seems like they're always shopping.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they have a lot of leverage.
It depends on the human. And if you hire wrong, if you hire somebody that's going to be that Machiavellian, that if they get money thrown at them from whomever threw it at them, or, again, like, we don't have people leave. Like, the attrition is so freaking low. The only people who've tapped out really over the last couple of years are people that just decided this industry is not for me.
Right.
And well, we've had a couple here and maybe a couple there. It's like the attrition level is crazy low, which is really awesome. And I'll tell you, Tom, I would never, ever have a 1, 3, or 5 year plan for anybody in my life, because I don't have one for me. I just don't work like that. Yeah. You can't put like every LO in the same shoes. Somebody might come in here, and the way that I determine their trajectory is like, what do you want out of this? What do you want to do in the first year? I ask them their goals. We do goal setting every single year with each one of these LOs. It's like, what do you want to do this year? Yeah. And how are we going to make a plan to do that? Because that's more important to me than what I want them to become. I want them to be happy. And listen, there are going to be some people that are going to be happy in the middle of the pack for the entirety of their career. Totally cool. Especially if they're a great person, they're a helpful person, that's fine. The reason why there are so few big producers is because it's hard to scale there. It really is hard to scale there. And almost all of our big producers here either started with us, or they got to us at young enough places in their career that the growth has been so tremendous. I think that they would tell themselves, I'd be stupid if I thought that part of this wasn't because of Spire Financial and wasn't because I was here.
Right. Yeah. So they understand that value becomes a part of them.
It's what they sell.
Yeah.
It's truly what they sell. And see, they feel proud of where they're at and the group that they're part of. And, it's very, very difficult to pry somebody out of somewhere that they're really happy and they still see their trajectory as one that they can follow.
Right. And I think, one of the things that's that kind of stuck out to me as you're talking about these, kind of 1, 3, 5 year plans, being difficult to do, and difficult to predict, with some of the volatility, in the market, and you mentioned you have some really great programs that are allowing you to do more this year than last year. Yep. Who's kind of coming up with that? Like, is that you all? And I mean, and what happens, like, how do you retain people if, let's say, some other bank or brokerage just has a better thing that you can't offer? There's red tape. I mean, are you just someone that's charging through the red tape and making sure you always have the best and, things things to offer people. I guess my question is, what happens if you're trying to grow a team and
Yeah.
you just really don't have some of those options that
Yeah, I mean, some of those options that look just aren't going to be on the table. I mean, when one of these regional banks wants to do 100% doctor loan at whatever percent, like because they're going to get their assets on deposit, and it's like they're going to give something away that we can't give here at Spire, and we got to be okay with that. We don't have to be all things to all buyers. We don't have to be all things to all realtors or developers. We need to hone in the things that we're really special with, because if Wells Fargo jumbo, as many of you know out there, decides that they're going to buy the jumbo market, guess what? They're big enough to buy the jumbo market. And you can't compete with that when they're going, sometimes directly to, their high net worth people, and they're saying, hey, I will do this at 0.9%. Oh, really? I mean, we just can't, you folks know we can't do that.
Yeah.
So, again, but since that's not our unique selling proposition, the programs are super important. And remember, that's what I'm mindful of all the time, and what the captains are, because you can't be last to market with certain things, right? But, by and large, the things that we've done were birthed in terms of the products, the programs, like the way that we do it, out of seeing something coming eventually, or just good intuition and feedback from our current folks and what we wanted to iterate on and get better.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I've seen kind of a thread of a couple questions here all centered around this idea of, you were originating, and as you said, like you really started to take off 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
You were still originating at that time, right? So, for like a team leader on this call who is originating, that's how they keep the lights on.
Yeah.
They're looking to grow the team. How did you kind of find that balance of time where, you obviously are so relational and investing in your people, setting up for success, but you also were originating and doing loans.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for somebody that's looking to grow? They want to really do this kind of, how you're talking about investing in their people, but they also have to originate to keep the lights on. I mean, do you just work extra hard for a number of years, or how do you kind of do it?
For a while I did,
Yeah.
but like, you have to want to replicate yourself in somebody else that wants that success too. And, that's going to mean that you're probably going to have to hire somebody. I mean, if you've got a goal and you're a singular LO, or you're on a current team that you feel is maxed out, you're going to have to hire somebody else.
Yep.
Right. And that leap of faith is always very difficult for loan officers that are ready to take that nesty plunge. And, we've had to push, pull, and drag so many of our top LOs over the last few years into taking on their own people. And they're all afraid. Why? Because there's a big risk there. They're paying more. And they're like, what if I don't do enough business? And I'm like, trust me, you will do more business. And we've never lied once on that. Every single person that's taken on a junior or an LOA or whatever they took on that team has done more business. And you need help. Like, as an LO, you got to decide, okay, listen, let's say you don't want to be in the files anymore. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. Go out there and sell your butt off, but find somebody who's better than you at it, and make sure that together you are one complete loan officer. Let's say that you're the type of person that's like, God, I love nerding out on the loan. I don't know who you people are, but I know you exist. And you're just really good technician. And you're like, you know what? I need to tell more people about me. I'm not a big enough billboard. Why don't you go hire a BDR? Because you're already good at that and kind of just naturally gravitates towards that. So go have somebody else be your agent on your behalf. Then it doesn't have to sound so weird, right? And you're not going to do it anyway. So since you're not going to do it, so you got to address the things that first off you really want to do, and then the things that you won't do.
Yep. Love that. Address the things that you want to do that you're good at, and the things that you won't do.
That's right.
Or you
Just
hate
be
doing.
honest with yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Don't lie to yourself.
No, I love it. I love the don't lie philosophy. Well, I think we have time for two more. This is a great one here from Devin and Katie. How do you keep your team motivated despite conflicts and obstacles? So maybe, macro trends as things change, but also micro trends where, I know you're obviously looking to hire people that are very intrinsically motivated, but I mean, we all have ups and downs in lives, and so, what do you do to keep Spire motivated when it's like, oh, gosh, rates are going up. This is going to be tough, or what do you do when somebody that's, here at Spire is just going through a really difficult time, and they're having a hard time staying motivated?
Yeah, I mean, and like, look, folks, right now is a really easy time to be down in the dumps, right? I mean, depending on where you're at and what you're doing, I guarantee it wasn't as much as what you're probably doing last year at this time. And that's something that everybody, even in our organization, is kind of battling with. It's the fear of the what if. Well, Rates are going to be at 8 by the end of the year, right? It's like, what if then? But, there's individual mentorship that happens there a lot. There's a lot of peer management that happens there a lot. A lot of commiseration that happens there peer to peer, which is fine because then they can know that they're not the only ones in that boat and they can kind of manage together. But truly how I keep the group motivated is, we have our regional sales meetings and damn near everybody in the company, I think, gets on them. And I'm really trying to understand what I'm going to talk about that morning in a way that what I'm happy about. If something's really bothering me, like if I've got a big concern, whether it be a micro or macro thing, I can pretty much guarantee myself that these people need that message that day. And it's very strange how that's come to be and how, I can't critique myself, but I think the meetings have gotten so much better because truly people need the understanding. You gotta find a way to stay motivated. And we try to do a lot of inspirational talks when we're in those sales meetings because we know how hard it is. But it's this holistic approach to truly being a better person. Because I can guarantee you, if you're a better person, we're addressing these big things inside of you. You can't help but be a better at whatever position that you do here. And so, we talk all the time, moving from inspiration, because inspired means in the spirit. So when you're in the spirit of something, like it's easy to be excited at the Bronco games when they're up 35, right? But the minute that you go home, you're thinking about something, maybe you're inspired for a couple days. Who knows? Probably depends on the team that they played or their current record. But the bottom line is that inspiration is going to wear off. And then you've got to find a way to stay motivated. What is going to motivate me to do this? You got to find that. You got to dig deep within. Guess what? Motivation's going to run out too. And then you better find a way to stay determined. And so, because determination is completely up to you and something that never has to run out. And so, it's just really getting folks aligned with that, because we talk about tough times don't last, tough people do. And if you'll change the framing of kind of the prism that you're looking through any good time or bad time, and just take that away and say, hey, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. So sometimes somebody needs a heart, stop being a baby. Let's go. It's go time. Sometimes you need to commiserate. Sometimes you need to figure things out together. But how we keep the group motivated kind of from a holistic approach is more of those like life motivational coaching moments.
Yeah, I think that's genius. It's at the top you're inspired, you're just giddy to be doing what you're doing. Yeah. That it's you're motivated, which means you're not having an issue, getting out of bed, doing what you need to do. Yep. And then there's moments when you're just determined, where it's like, I don't want to do this, but I have to, or I'm going to. And how have you found effective ways to coach determination, or is that just something that's kind of, a part of your DNA or not?
You've got to find somebody's why. Yeah. See, because then maybe they're accidentally two-faced with themselves. And they're working down one line of thought and being, but they're really like it's just counterintuitive to who they really are. And so the why part's really big. I mean, you really got to understand, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Now, what happens is when you start having talks like this and you reach this critical mass, somehow like the right people get attracted to you, to like listen to that message and want to be excited about the message and to follow through. But like, determination in anything that we do comes right back down to our priorities. Like, what is your priority? And if that's your real priority, and you're not lying to yourself, if that's your real priority, then you're going to be determined to make that happen one way or the other.
Right. Absolutely. Kind of last question. There's been a few around this theme, but just general thoughts and where do you think things are going for the next year? What are some of the things that you are preparing for? Yeah. At Spire, what are some of the things maybe you're concerned about? What are things that you're excited about this next year, both at Spire and just maybe in the kind of economy at large?
Yeah, I'll just kind of talk about, like, obviously everybody knows what's happening. Many of you are very well educated on where the market is, and people a lot smarter than me thinking about where the market's going. We know rates are going to go up until we hit a recession, and then they'll probably ease off a little bit. But Truly don't know exactly when that is yet. It's probably Q3, Q4. And then we're going to be faced with a different set of problems. I mean, getting into a recession, money's tightening up. Maybe somebody's not bidding $100,000 on that house. So, what do we need to do to think about like all of the possibilities, and how can we be best positioned depending on determining like where the market goes? Like it's none of us have a crystal ball. And so, the thing that I concentrate within that frame here is getting people buffered with as much education and knowledge and tools as they can possibly have. Because the really cool thing about being in a tough time is when you're out of the tough time, any loan that you did is now another loan, or maybe another loan. And so it's just like, listen, like if there's just less of them out there right now, let's work on this time to really hone your skills. Let's get you dug into your CRM. Let's get you dug into the file process. Let's get you dug into like a new way that you can market.
Right.
A new way that you can market you, because you should be your best billboard.
Yep.
And just the retraining and the focusing and letting them know, hey, you've got time for all of it. Because as a loan officer, you're the CEO of you. So, if there's less of something, work on getting better in another way that's readily available. And I'm telling you, we'll make it through.
Awesome. Well, we're just right at 11:30. I think there's a lot of great questions there. Dan, I just want to thank you so much.
Thank you
for taking the time. I'm not sure if we got the slides to work or not. Looks like we did. So if anyone has interest in learning a little bit more about maybe some of the ways that Daily Eye works with, Dan and Spire, happy to chat about that. We are doing a lot of work on the recruiting front. I know we talked a lot about that today. Obviously Spire's built an amazing team and culture. We don't have to do much to help them.
Yeah.
But happy to chat with anyone that's looking to grow their team. But yeah, once again, thank you, Dan. Thank you for everyone who who joined us this morning or this afternoon, wherever you're coming from. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.